Today we're going to make some beer. I've got my large 7-gallon pot on the right and my other large pot on the left. I've put about 2.5 gallons of water into the large one. I'm heating the water up to 140 degrees. And then this one is going to be used for sparging once it gets hot. We have 10 pounds of barley, crushed. While they are heating up, it's best to conserve energy, so I'm going to put this lid on this one. Western Crystal, pale chocolate malt, or Maris Otter, chocolate and roasted malts. Okay, now I'm going to start adding the barley while the water is heating up. And I've got my thermometer in. I want to get it to 140 to 150 degrees. The beer is brewing very nicely at a constant temperature of around 140 degrees to maximize the alcohol content. If you want to cook it at this temperature, I would say an hour and a half. The mash has been going for about an hour and a half at 140 degrees. Doesn't that look yummy? The next step is to turn up the heat and bring it up to about 180 to 200 degrees. Then you're ready to begin the sparging process. We pour it into these buckets. I've drilled hundreds of holes in the bottom. Then nesting the two together, the top one becomes a gigantic strainer. We brought the temperature up to over 180, and now we're going to begin the sparging process. Now we've dumped this all out. Next we're going to take the water and spoon it in. Get some water out, and now I'm pouring it into the lauter tun. I'm going to pull it up and it's going to start draining. Then we'll eventually pull out the first bucket, and the bottom bucket will be filled with pure wort. Okay, now we'll pour the wort back into the pot for the final boiling where we add the hops. Begin the boiling, which is about an hour. And you turn up the heat and get it really hot, and you start adding the hops. As you can see, we have Cascade pellet hops, which Abby really likes. What the heck? Let's throw all the hops in. Yeehaw! I'm very hoppy. You need to let it cool down first before you put it into the glass carboy, because you don't want the glass to break. And also you want to keep it at about 110 degrees before you put the yeast in. Craft Series is good. And another package for the next batch. Smells pretty darn good. Now we begin the cooling process. Put the pot in the sink. Turn on the cold water. Take the top off. Continue to stir. While this is cooling, we'll prepare the yeast. I've taken a cup of water and added 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Thrown it in the microwave for 1 minute. I used my little thermometer and the temperature was about 110, which is a good temperature. I added the yeast. Now we're going to let it sit for about 10-15 minutes. The wort has now come down to about 120 degrees. Pretty soon we'll be able to transfer it into the carboy. That will cool it down to about 110 degrees as we pour it in. That should be the perfect temperature for putting the yeast that is now preparing with the sugar, and pour that in, and then we'll be ready to let it ferment. Now we will do the krausening. Before fermenting this whole batch of wort, you want to take out some, put it aside without the yeast. When it's time to bottle, pour this back in to the mix, and it's unfermented, so then when you bottle, the bottles will become carbonated. We'll take some of this out and pour it into our glass here. We'll save this for 2 weeks and then we'll pour it into the fermented batch right before bottling. So we've added our yeast to the cup of water with 1/3 of a cup of sugar, and it is looking like it is growing very nicely. Now we're going to start spooning the wort, the black stout wort, using a pan into the 5-gallon carboy. Then we will throw the yeast in, and we're sort of done for the day. Like a half a gallon at a time. Then we'll put the yeast in. Okay, so now we have our carboy is filled. The yeast is in there. And now we'll just wait for everything to kick in, and hopefully it will start bubbling in a little while. It's fermenting very nicely. You can hear it bubbling away. This device prevents bacteria from getting in. It's filled with water, and the carbon dioxide can get out from the fermentation, but the bacteria cannot get in. just see the must at the top. Very black ale. Pearl Harbor 75th Anniversary Ale.